Are you ready for a Traitors episode recap, rant, review? Hit the like and subscribe button as the intro plays. All right, y'all. So I have one question.
Didn't I get that heifer straight?
Because Dan, we'll get to that. We don't need to go through the whole episode. And I say this every review. I'm not going through the whole episode frame by frame, but then I go through the whole episode. But today I'm really not going through the whole episode because the meat of the episode was the last 10 minutes. Am I wrong?
That's what I said. Did I say that?
Am I wrong? Is that what we really wanted to see? Because that is what I've been anticipating since last week, what was going to happen. And it happened. So, let's a little bit of backstory for those of you who really want a little bit of backstory. And I hate backstory, but I give a lot of it sometimes. So Janelle was banished last week and she said, "Of course I'm a faithful, you idiots." So that immediately shifted everybody. All eyes on Dan, right? All eyes were already on Dan, but somehow he beat it last week. He beat it and put the eyes on Janelle. So all eyes are on Dan, and Peter had a plan last week, and Peter's plan has come into fruition.
I know it sounds crazy.
Now, part of me felt like this plan was kind of staged because it played out so perfectly in Peter's favor. So, at the end of last episode, the traitors had to come together and decide who they were going to murder. And because of Peter's plan, he kind of, took the heat off of himself and Janelle and put it on Bergie and Trishelle. Like, oh, Janelle and I have the shield, but we know Janelle didn't have the shield because Janelle got banished. So instantly I would have thought if I was a traitor, oh, well, he's lying. They did think he was lying, but Dan really had his eyes out for Bergie because Bergie was on to him and Bergie voted against him to be banished.
Guess I just had that one coming.
So, start of this episode 6. They're going to the breakfast room. Who was murdered? And, everybody falls into the breakfast room. Oh my God, we're still here. So the final 2 people were left out, and it must be my Burgerlicious. Oh no, Phaedra says, not Burgerlicious.
You ain't nobody's friend. Mama.
Although she knew it was Burgerlicious because she's a traitor. Right? So, but guess what, everybody? In walks Burgerlicious, the last one. And instantly, Dan and Parvati look shocked. I mean, that's the way they cut it. They cut it to go to like Dan and Parvati and Phaedra making her faces. So Bergie had the shield. So Bergie is still alive in the house. So they go on to their challenge. They're running through the woods, trying to get this catapult boulder to a destination. Meanwhile, in the woods, there are different shield boxes. So they had to pick up these shield boxes, and it was heavy. It looked heavy, and they were like running, like pulling this thing uphill. They said it took like, they couldn't move like 10 feet. It was hard to move 10 feet with that big wooden monstrosity. So they did it, and here's a funny thing. Who won the shield? Sheree boring ass Whitfield won the shield. Like, why were you going for the shield, Sheree? She's like, oh, I can finally sleep at night. Sleep peacefully at night. Sheree, nobody was thinking about you as a traitor. You say 2 words in the house. Now, the funny thing is, Dan has only said a few words in the house, but they instantly thought he was a traitor. Why? Because of his history from Big Brother. And he just looks suspicious. Sheree, you just look kind of vacant and blank and like you don't even know how you got there. Like, why am I here? What am I doing here? Why am I running through the woods? What am I doing? What's this show I'm on? That's what Sheree looks like.
These are your words. We're not putting words in your mouth.
So, meanwhile, before, they go into the banishment ceremony, the round table, there's suspicions about who is the traitor. So, there's an alliance that has formed, and it's formed around Peter, the bachelor. Peter is the one with the plan. Peter with the plan. And his plan is playing out because he said, I told 3 people who I suspected as being traitors who had the shield. And these 3 people were KT. Is it KC or KT? I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. I say it every week.
What are you doing? I forgot.
KT, or is it KC? Oh my God. KT and Dan and Parvati. He told those 3 people. So if Bergie ends up, murdered, then it's obviously one of them. And that's what happened. So Peter is not letting off of their necks. He has his knee on their necks. He will not let up. Even, and he has his whole crew of people, his minions apparently, of John and Trishelle and Kevin, his whole clique, they're together. He ain't nobody messing with his clique. So they're all in a room, talking about it and discussing it. And then Dan is trying to figure out his next move, his next strategic move, which we'll get to that. But, Dan tried to pull Peter aside, and Peter wasn't budging. And Peter just said, I'm going to hear you out, but...
Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm going to let you finish.
I ain't buying what you selling, Dan. I ain't buying what you selling. Because Peter knows you played into the plan. All right, so you get to the round table, the piece de resistance, right? The piece de resistance. Now... Dan he decided to speak first. I'm going to speak.
It's showtime.
Because I haven't been speaking. You wanted me to speak? So since day 1, I've been looking at one person. And everybody's like, who has he been looking at? Who? I've been looking at one person. So let's just go with the votes. There were some strange votes. Everybody's name's been written down except for these people. Sheree had a strange vote by voting out John. That was the strangest vote ever, everybody. Like, why did Sheree go for John? But again, I don't think Sheree knows what game she's playing.
Oh, man, we got to be careful with this. We don't want to embarrass somebody like me in front of my family and my community.
And then he starts listing everybody. But then he gets down to the final 2, which were his traitors. Who is the real traitor? Dan was definitely the real traitor because he chose Parvati and Phaedra. And he said, Phaedra, let's just get to Phaedra. Phaedra, you had a weird vote. You voted out Atkins Sue. You said, not my burgerlicious. Your reactions, not my burgerlicious. You said your reaction to Marcus being voted out. Phaedra, you are the traitor. And this is when Phaedra entered the room. Phaedra is an attorney, everybody. Whether people always say, Phaedra, when are you going to win a case? Phaedra, first of all, Phaedra doesn't litigate, everybody. She writes contracts. She's an entertainment lawyer. So let's make that clear. She writes contracts for people. And she was a producer of being Bobby Brown. But she is also the queen of reads. So, Dan, one thing you must know is one group of people you cannot argue are black women.
I don't want to hear this shit all night. You ain't got to hear nothing.
You will never win with a black woman in an argument. Just so you know, everybody, and I know people are like, why'd you bring race into it? I'm just stating facts. You will not win in an argument with a black woman.
You have not been in an argument until you've argued with a black woman. Okay, everything else is fucking a cakewalk.
Now maybe if it was, Garcelle from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, if you know, you can win an argument with her. She's easy. But you will not win an argument, especially with a Southern black woman. So Phaedra has entered the room. She said, now, why does that make me a traitor? Because I'm doing too much, you do too little.
Now check that.
You have been quiet. You bring in you know how to play this game. because of being on Big Brother. You won on Big Brother twice. He said, I almost won twice. Well, whatever. But you have been quiet and not saying anything. You're the one that's a suspicious traitor. You are the traitor, Dan. And I'm not doing Phaedra justice right now, but let's just say she hasn't read anybody the way she read Dan since this.
Her weekends peddling through sperm banks, looking through catalogs to try to find a donor. Honey, you don't know if your baby daddy will be an axe murderer or a child molester, because what you will know is that he needed $10 to get him a medium-sized pizza, so he ejaculated in a cup so you could have a kid. Now check that.
Like, Phaedra is not the one to mess with Dan. She said, you gonna learn today. You gonna find out today, Dan. And he did. And then, Parvati, the thing with her is like, girl, you putting a further target on your back the more you speak. I mean, the thing is, I was with Dan because I trusted him. And, that's why I've been siding with Dan. Like, shut up, Parvati. You could have set that one out. Now, for next week, you have a further target on your back.
For every dummy, there's a dummy.
So they ended up almost unanimously voting out Dan. But who was the one vote that didn't make it unanimous? Peter. He voted for Parvati. Like, why? Why, Peter? Why? But anyhow, Dan went home and Dan acknowledged that he met his match in a dolled up housewife.
Grave you dig for me, you better dig a double one because you'll fall in it first.
But that's not it. That's not it. So what happens later, of course, the traitors have to reconvene, and it's just two of them. It's Phaedra and Parvati. And they're like, oh my God. And Phaedra was disgusted. She said, I was so disgusted. But then, they were shocked because, in walks Alan.
I like everything spooky and strange and weird, so bring it on.
As a traitor, you can now either recruit another traitor or you can murder someone. What's it going to be? And Parvati had this idea to let's bring in Peter. Let's recruit him. Which I don't think was necessarily the best idea because he could take that information back to the group and, if he denied, wanting to become a traitor, if he declined becoming a traitor, he could take that back to the group and your whole spot would be blown up, Parvati, because the eyes are on you. Like, oh, I voted you out, so now I want to recruit you. But then to Peter's point, when he got his letter, he said, if I don't accept, then I'll be murdered. So we shall see what happens on the next episode of The Traitors.